Oh no, we're going right now.
Hello, Three Bikes Nation. Unfortunately, just a little bit of technical difficulty there to start the show off. Special show today. We got a live broadcast going on. This might be our new setup, maybe not. Alongside Aiden Power and Patrick Stevenson, as usual. We're coming off a big week. We're late in the college football playoff season. There's so much to talk about. I think we shouldn't waste too much time getting right into it. Boys, what game did you guys? What game do you guys want to start with?
Well, I think the game everyone's talking about this week has got to be that Ohio State-Michigan State matchup. Got this new piece of technology right here. Going into this game, I think Ohio State was favored by a touchdown in the field goal maybe, and nobody would have thought that Michigan State, without Connor Cook, of course, was going to be able to keep this game competitive at all. A lot of turmoil in Columbus after this. JT Barrett didn't put forth a spectacular performance, and really the number from this is just 12 carries for Ezekiel Elliott. Is reigning. A lot of people would have expected him to get a lot more carries. I know that was certainly a topic of conversation after the game.
Just before we get to Pat here, Aiden, I know you heard about Ezekiel's comments following the game. Said he was disappointed with the number of touches he got. It was senior day and everything. What do you think about when players like this, who kind of are the face of the team, make comments like Ezekiel did?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Ezekiel Elliott's the best player on Ohio State's team. He's got the most talent. He's going to be a terrific pro. And I think everyone agrees that he probably should have gotten more than 12 carries. But I think there's a time and place for him to voice those concerns. And in the locker room following their first win in 20-something games, I don't think this was the time or the place. I think he's got to be a little bit more respectful of Urban Meyer to make comments like that, frankly.
Yeah, I think we see this a lot from teams that aren't used to losing. We saw Florida State last year after getting blown out by Oregon. They just left the field. They didn't know how to handle it. I think Ezekiel Elliott just got upset over the loss, said some things. Whether it's true or not, we're not sure. I think he seemed pretty sure that he wanted to go to the NFL. But if we go back to the game, I think the bigger story is Michigan State's defense. They're one of the best defenses in the country. They shut down JT Barrett. They shut down the whole offense. Urban Meyer was really limited in his play calling, and it was tough to give Ezekiel Elliott the ball because of what Michigan State was doing defensively. So a great game from the Spartans, and looks like they're on their way to the Big Ten championship.
Yeah, Pat, you talk about teams who don't really know how to lose, and you alluded to obviously Florida State and Ohio State are two great examples of that. What about teams who just find ways to win, like this Michigan State team has? In their big wins against Michigan and Ohio State this year, both games they haven't led for a second of play. They've won both games right at the end, but they're able to find a way to win. What do you think that says about this team, going forward and come playoff time?
Yeah, there's no doubt this is a really resilient Michigan State team, and I think the key for them is it starts with their defense. What Patrick was saying earlier about their ability to stop the run, and once you stop the run, you've sort of made the offense more predictable. You saw Urban Meyer as a play caller just sort of froze up in that second half. Ohio State would have only scored 7 points on the game if it wasn't for that muffed punt return by the Michigan State returner. So, and it's tough. There's no doubt about it. Just the resilience from Michigan State's really been impressive this year.
We just pulled up the schedule up here. I know you can't really see it on that screen, but you look at all the close games Michigan State has played, and that really bodes well for them when it comes down to Big Ten championship and college football playoff time. They've had experience in close games, even though some of them maybe shouldn't have been so close, like Purdue and Rutgers. I think Michigan State's definitely got the experience. Their only loss to Nebraska, I think Nebraska just got lucky in the last minute there. And Michigan State's a really good football team. They got a good shot at winning it all.
Obviously, the ability to play in pressure situations and have games, being able to play in those tight games that, you have to battle all the way through. Obviously, that's really important to building a team and, their success in the future. But how do you think the college football playoff committee is going to see this when they're, evaluating, the style points that we got from this Spartans team this fall?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a great thing to have the ability to win close games, but it's another thing to keep games close against teams that you really should beat by more points. And I think it's gonna work for them and against them in different ways. And I suspect overall it's a bit of a negative to play competitive games with teams that you should be pulling out. Agreed.
Yeah, so just talking about that playoff picture and as it's shaping up right now, I was wondering if you guys thought that, we're sticking with the Big Ten here, Obviously, we're looking at an Iowa, Michigan State Big Ten championship game. What do you guys think of that matchup?
You know, I don't like to look too far ahead, but I think it's going to be a really boring game to watch. First of all, not a lot of offense on either of these teams. I haven't watched Iowa play as much as I probably should have, just because they're not an exciting team to watch. I'd much rather watch Baylor take on Oklahoma and watch Baker Mayfield work his magic. But I think they're two good defenses, two solid offenses that run the football effectively, and I think it will be a close matchup.
Yeah, the thing about Iowa is I forget what I was gonna say, but they're not gonna impress anyone. They've really got a good all-around offense. They've got C.J. Beathard isn't gonna make any huge plays for them in the passing game, but he is gonna manage the game effectively, allow them to work the run game. He's a pretty good runner as well. Year after year, we see tons of Iowa offensive linemen get drafted into the NFL draft, and that's not a coincidence. They produce great offensive linemen every year, so they're good at just pounding it out. I think they can contend with a team like Michigan State, who's really tough in the front seven, and Iowa's got a defense that they're pretty solid. They're not outstanding, but they can get the job done against most teams.
It will definitely be an intriguing matchup. And you talked about Baker Mayfield, who I know you're a huge fan of. Let's talk about that Oklahoma TCU game that we witnessed this past Saturday. It was a game in which, Oklahoma, they just come off that big win against Baylor, so they were carrying that momentum into the game. As a TCU team who'd fallen all the way down to 18, I believe, in the rankings at the time. And, Aiden, I just wanted to get your thoughts on that game.
It was a fun football game to watch, but ultimately I was a little bit disappointed with, the performance of Oklahoma and specifically Baker Mayfield, not putting forth the sort of unbelievable numbers that we've come to expect from him. And this TCU team is not the team it was 3 weeks ago. They've lost 2 in a row. They didn't have Trayvon Boykin or Josh Dobson. By far their 2 best offensive players. So it was a weakened TCU team. Still a quality win, no doubt about it. But I mean, it's not what we would have thought it to be 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, but I still think Oklahoma was looking like one of the best teams in the country. Baker Mayfield didn't have a great game, especially stats-wise, but he got the job done. He won the game. He did get hurt, so they got a bye week this week, which is good for Mayfield. He got some rest before Oklahoma State, and game that'll likely decide the Big 12 championship. But yeah, Oklahoma, to me, they're looking like a playoff team at the moment.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about TCU here. Obviously, we saw in the fourth quarter they put up 16 points to, mount a little bit of a comeback. Ended up dropping the game 30-29. They opted to go for 2 instead of the tie late in the fourth quarter. Just what are you guys' opinion on that? Both as football players, what that does for a team when they come all the way back and then a coaching decision ultimately leads to a loss like what happened here.
I think whenever a coach is making a decision like this, they have to think about the momentum of the game at that point. If they think they have the momentum, do they want to carry that momentum into overtime? Or if they think they're sort of there because of luck, do they want to go for 2 and think that, if we can't move the ball 2 yards on one play, we don't deserve to win the game? I think, Gary Patterson probably thought that they were a little outmatched, and, without the experience at the quarterback position, he liked his chances just in one play rather than trying to take on Baker Mayfield, with their backup QB in the game.
And if you're on the offense, you get really excited when you're going to go for 2 with a chance to win the game. The defense might not help their confidence too much. It shows not a ton of faith in them. But, yeah, I'm sure the offense was excited. And it's always nice when the coaches put faith in you to win the game near the end of the game. But they just didn't get the job done.
Yeah, sticking with the Big 12 here, let's talk about that other big matchup we have this weekend. We have the Baylor Bears headed to Stillwater to take on the Cowboys of Oklahoma State. And we saw the Bears roll out of there with a 10-point victory. Oklahoma State, a lot of people thought that they were the last team in the Big 12 that had any potential of making the college football playoff. Just wondered what you guys thought of this game in general and what kind of implications you had that you thought the game had going forward.
It's another week, another new quarterback for Baylor, and another guy stepping up in that offense and making big plays. We saw Chris Johnson come in the second half after Jarrett Stidham's ankle injury, I think. He just stepped up to the challenge in a tough environment on the road against an undefeated team. Really impressed with his performance. Really impressed with the Baylor offense in general. We've said it, they're the best offense in college football right now. And frankly, I was equally disappointed with Oklahoma State. You know, their defense was supposed to be the top in the Big 12. It's tough to come in here and go against the second-string quarterback and a third-string quarterback and give up 45 points.
Well, yeah, when you say the best defense in the Big 12, that's not really saying much. There isn't much defense in that conference. Great game from Mason Rudolph. He put up outstanding numbers on 50 pass attempts, but just not enough, though. The Oklahoma State defense couldn't stop Baylor's offense and their multiple quarterbacks. Chris Johnson, another, as you said, came into the game and really stepped up his play, helped lead them to victory. So I think it shows that that's a great offense they're running over there at Baylor. They can go through 3 quarterbacks and they're all looking really good. Yeah,
I think the statistic from this game is Oklahoma State just 8 rushing yards on the night. That's not going to win you a tough Big 12 football game. You know, Baylor's a team that they run that spread offense, but they've shown their consistent ability to run the football. I think that's sort of the difference between them and some of these other offenses in the Big 12 right now.
Yeah, I was just wondering what you guys thought going forward. If this game, took any Big 12 team out of playoff conversation, or if you thought that there's still a chance for an Oklahoma State, a Baylor, or an OU to crack the top 4.
Well, I think the winner of the Big 12 should get into the college football playoff. At the moment, I believe the way it stands is if Baylor can win both their games, they have a shot. If Oklahoma State beats Oklahoma, the Baylor will win the Big 12. If Oklahoma only needs to win the Big 12. So Oklahoma is the best looking team right now. They control their own destiny. They're the only team that controls their own destiny in the Big 12. I think ultimately the winner of the Big 12 should get a spot in the college football playoff.
Maybe the winner should, but I think the winner probably won't unless we see Notre Dame lose to Stanford this weekend, or Clemson lose for whatever reason. I think someone above them is going to have to lose for the Big 12 to have a chance in the playoff.
And we'll see the rankings come out later today. We'll see where the committee ranks Oklahoma and Notre Dame. That's an interesting matchup to see where you judge after the Irish's close victory over Boston College this weekend at Fenway.
Yeah, I'd say the team that definitely has the best chance coming out of the Big 12, I'm with Patrick on this one, is definitely Oklahoma. Remember, they still have to travel to Stillwater this week during rivalry week to play them in that Bedlam game. Next week, my bad. To play them in that Bedlam game. That's a big win if they can get that win on the road against a top. Well, we'll see where Oklahoma State falls to, but a top 15 opponent, let's assume.
Yeah, the issue with Oklahoma is that we know the committee likes to use common opponents when they're making those comparisons. Of course, Notre Dame beat Texas by 35. Oklahoma lost to Texas. You can make the argument about how Texas has transformed between those 2 games, but ultimately we know that's something the committee's going to take into account. And I like the way Notre Dame wins that matchup.
Well, in my personal opinion, I think the committee will still go with Notre Dame over Oklahoma this week. We'll see what happens after Notre Dame plays Stanford and Oklahoma plays Oklahoma State. In my opinion, I'd go the other way. I'd go with Oklahoma.
Wow, a little bit of 3 mics controversy here on the show today. All right, well, that will bring us into our next game. Pat, you got any games from the Pac-12 this past weekend you want to talk about?
Well, we saw UCLA versus Utah in an elimination game in the Pac-12 South. Utah, they were a hype team earlier in the season. Let's try and bring up the scores. But Utah has now dropped a few games. UCLA looked pretty impressive in that win, knocking out Utah. The defense looked really good. It was a surprisingly low-scoring game out there. Devontae Booker, I believe, was injured for the Utes. So that definitely hurt Utah. But that, even though USC lost a tough one against Oregon, that sets up this week USC versus UCLA for a chance to win the Pac-12 South and face Stanford in the Pac-12 championship. And that'll be an exciting game this coming weekend.
I honestly didn't watch the game, so I have no input on that specific game. But anytime you can grab that win late in the season, obviously when there are playoff implications involved, that's a big.
Another big win for Josh Rosen on the road. Kid's going to be an incredible player. Can't wait to see him, what he does.
Yeah, well, you brought up the playoff implications. At this point, I think it's too little too late for the Pac-12 to get into the playoff race. Stanford maybe with a lot of help, and Oregon's looking really good, but they've lost too many games. So it's a little too little too late for the Pac-12.
Yeah, and I know you're that big Irish fan. amongst us. Just wondering what you thought about that, relatively poor performance, an extremely poor performance this weekend against Boston College at Fenway.
Yeah, it was bad. I think 4 turnovers in the red zone for the Irish was really what cost them. Their offense moved the ball pretty well in my mind. DeShone Kizer, the worst we've seen from him so far, but we have to remember this Boston College defense is the top defense in the country. So whatever you can do against them is always good. I was a little disappointed with Notre Dame giving up 16 points to a really terrible Boston College offense. Overall, it was a disappointing game, but if you take away the turnovers, the offense moved the ball pretty effectively. The defense was pretty stout for most of the game, except for late in the second half. Not too alarming, but just I think one bad game really.
And he said DeShone Kizer may have had his worst game, but if you put up 320 yards and 2 touchdowns in your worst game, you can't be that bad a quarterback. So it's Notre Dame still, I think they're definitely going to be favorites over Stanford, and they're gonna have to win that game probably by 10 points if they want to seriously make sure they're in the playoff. Otherwise, they don't want to leave it up to the committee's hands.
Yeah, this is definitely not the kind of performance you want late in the season like this. When all eyes are on you when you're in that playoff contention. But I don't think this is going to be a trend for Notre Dame. I think this is just a bad weekend, and they'll get right back on it. That's really all I had to say about that. So why don't we just finish up this week by giving out helmet stickers. Favorite part of the show for me personally. Baker Mayfield. I doubt that we get anyone this week, but I think this will be the first time in a while we got one. Reminder, you can get your 3 Mike stickers. Just talk to one of us. Are we good to go there?
Sure, I'll go. First guy, I talked about him a little bit earlier in the show. I love giving out my helmet stickers to Big 12 guys, and I'm going with Chris Johnson, the kid from Baylor, coming in off the bench in the second half. He's the 3rd-string quarterback. In a tough road environment against an undefeated Oklahoma State team, got a big win for his team. Threw a couple of beautiful touchdown passes. Love what I saw from the kid.
I'm going to go with Oregon quarterback Vernon Adams. The kid had an outstanding game, passing for over 400 yards, and first player to ever throw 6 touchdowns against USC. He started the season a little slow, but he only had about a week of practice before the regular season started with Oregon. So that's tough for any quarterback, and Oregon really struggled to move the ball without him. Now that he's come back, Oregon's looking like the way we thought they were going to look in the preseason. He had an outstanding game, so he gets my helmet sticker.
Yeah. Aiden, not only am I going to stick in the same conference as you, and I'm going to pick the same position, but I'm also going to pick the same game. I'm giving my helmet sticker to Mason Rudolph, who, in spite of an 8-yard rushing performance from that Oklahoma State offense, he threw for 430 yards and, really kept that Cowboy team in the game. And, 35 points with only 8 rushing yards, you rely on your quarterback a lot, and that's what Mason Rudolph did. He stepped up, didn't make it all the way, but, 430 yards, I'm giving him my helmet sticker. All right, so let's look ahead to this next week. We're gonna go to our quick pick games. Pat, I know you got some games over there you want us to talk about, or should I say pick? All right, yeah, let's start off with that Notre Dame Stanford game. It's all eyes will be on that one this weekend. Aiden, who you got there?
A big bounce back game for Notre Dame, I think. I love so many players on this team. I expect DeShone Kizer to take care of the ball this week, and I think that's really going to be the key. They can limit their turnovers. I don't see them really having any problem with the Stanford team.
Yeah, I think Stanford's not playing as well as they were playing a few weeks ago. I think Notre Dame, even though they're going on the road, they're just going to have a little more to play for in this game. Stanford's more or less out of the playoff picture. So I think Notre Dame uses that moment or that possibility for the playoff and uses it to get a win.
The boys from South Bend, they're heading out to the West Coast there. Palo Alto, tough place to play. I'm going to go with Stanford in this one, actually. So our next game here, we got Baylor-TCU, obviously a rematch of last year's, which arguably was the best game of the year. That 61-58 shootout in Waco. This year we're in Fort Worth. Aiden, who you got in that game?
Yeah, this game is not the game I thought it was going to be a couple of weeks ago when both these teams were still undefeated. I'm not sure what the situation is with Trayvon Boykin right now, or what the situation is with Baylor's QB situation, so it's going to be tough. Ultimately, I'm going to pick which team has the worst defense. I don't think either of these teams have a good defense, but I think Baylor's defense is not as bad, so I'm going to take the Bears.
Yeah, I think you said the uncertainty of both teams at quarterback position, but I think Baylor just has more playmakers than TCU outside of the quarterback position. TCU more relies on Trevon Boykin, so I think Baylor will try and get the ball to Corey Coleman, to KD Cannon, to Shock Linwood, and they're gonna score. They're just gonna score more points than TCU.
Yeah, it's gonna be another shootout this year, in spite of the quarterback situation for both teams. You know, so many playmakers on Baylor. I'm with you guys on this one. You know,
Best receiving core in the country.
sick and Bears. All right, our final game, obviously. How can you talk about Thanksgiving weekend without
Oh, sure. Sorry, my bad.
without that Ohio State Michigan game? It's in the Big House this year. Aiden, who you got there?
You know, all the turmoil going on in Columbus right now. We have to remember this Michigan team is a fumbled snap away from being a one-loss team. The way they've been playing since that week 1 loss to Utah, they've been one of the best-looking teams in the country, if you ask me. All the uncertainty with this Ohio State team, everything that's going on there, I don't think they're going to be ready to go. I got Michigan.
Yeah, I think even though they got Urban Meyer over there at Ohio State, it's just a little turmoil, as you said, coming into this week. I'm not sure their mind is going to be in the right place. They're not going to be too excited. They're going to feel down on themselves. And I think Michigan, they've been really excited for every game under Jim Harbaugh, and he's definitely going to have them ready to play the biggest rivals. And I think they get a win in the Big House.
Yeah, I cannot wait to see how Jim Harbaugh prepares his boys for this battle. You know, obviously this is the biggest game of the year. Everybody in Columbus and Ann Arbor, this is the game at the beginning of the season. They circle on that calendar. It's gonna be a live atmosphere. You know, it's gonna be tough. What is it, 115,000 people in the Big House? You know, something like that. They're gonna be passionate. I think that's gonna, you know, ultimately lead this Michigan team to victory, taking the Wolverines in this one. All right, thanks for another great show. Until next time, stay up, Three Mics Nation.